Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Miriam Corowa. Police have been out in force across Melbourne in a bid to stop anti-lockdown protests. A small group of protesters gathered at St Kilda but were hindered by hundreds of officers. Anne Barker is near St Kilda and joins us now. So Anne, just take us through what's been happening there near where you are.
Well, Miriam, it's quiet here now at the beach, but a few hours ago, about 1 o'clock, there was quite a skirmish between protesters and police. There was a group of about maybe 50 protesters who marched along the road next to the St Kilda foreshore and managed to evade police for some time because of the traffic. It took probably a good 15 minutes or more before police were able to sort of galvanise. They were there in much bigger numbers than the protesters. This was actually quite a spontaneous protest and actually quite disorganised. For hours, the protesters on social media groups had been trying to work out where they could go, when they could go, and do it in a way that obviously the police wouldn't necessarily know that they were there. And they finally settled on Luna Park at midday, but so many of them, when they got there, the police were already there first. They were there in much bigger numbers. A lot of people were arrested as soon as they arrived, just one by one. But suddenly this group materialised and started sort of marching down the foreshore. And it wasn't a large group, really only about 50 people. It didn't take that long for the police to bring it under control. Many people were arrested, very similar to what we saw yesterday. And there wasn't a huge disruption in the end to much more than just a little bit of traffic and many of the pedestrians and cyclists and runners who often go up and down the foreshore here.
So Anne, how does this protest today compare with other clashes that we've seen already this week?
Well, look, every day since last weekend when it was announced that there would be a shutdown of the construction industry, there have been attempts to protest. Obviously, we saw a big protest in Richmond last weekend. There were the big protests during the week at the Shrine and also on the Westgate Bridge, the Westgate Freeway. On those days, I think the protesters possibly outnumbered the police. There were hundreds of them. Perhaps not as many police as we've seen this weekend. Certainly in the last couple of days, the number of police has been ramped up to around 2,000, I'm told. And right through the CBD yesterday and today, we've seen almost on every corner where there might have been a protest, the police were there waiting, arresting individuals who looked as if they were there for no reason other than to protest. So that's exactly what has happened today. Many people were arrested, they were fined, some were moved on, some were taken away, and really it was a very short-lived protest, nothing like the bigger ones that we've seen in recent days.
And it's also AFL Grand Final day, so are footy fans heeding that advice to stay at home?
Look, I mean, obviously during the day people are out exercising, doing their thing, but at the MCG, of course, which normally would be a hive of activity on Grand Final day, it was very empty in that area this morning. Certainly a lot of people are out, wearing the colours if they're Demons supporters or Bulldogs supporters. I think the real test will come this evening when the match starts. Obviously the curfew will take effect in the middle of the game, so whichever side wins, people in Melbourne at least won't be able to celebrate outside afterwards. Most people, I imagine, also being a very cold day here today in Melbourne, most people will no doubt be watching at home, and I suspect a lot of people will be staying home for that reason more than anything.
Anne Barker there with all the details in Melbourne. Victoria has